Hello everyone, my name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. It is about time that we started a new Sherlock Holmes vlog. So that is exactly what we're going to do. It's been a little bit since I have done one, so I'm very excited to film another one. So this is just going to be an introduction to the book, and as usual, I will read out the first portion of the first story because this is a short story collection. If you haven't seen the previous ones, there have already been 3. I will link them down below so you can see them if you would like to. We are going to be reading in this book the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. This is a short story collection. It is the 2nd short story collection in publication order and the 4th Sherlock Holmes book overall in publication order. And this one was published in 1894. So that's when this one came out. And this will be my first time reading it. The previous vlog contained a reread for me, but this is the first short story collection that will be brand new, and I'm very excited to start it. So yeah, we are going to go ahead and read out a little bit of the blurb, and then I'll read you the first part of this first story. So the blurb says, "He is the Napoleon of crime. He is the organizer of half that is evil and of nearly all that is undetected in this great city. A man like Sherlock Holmes has no enemies, violent murderers, deviant villains, ghosts of old loves, blackmailers, and poisonous scribes, to name but a few. But none are so deadly, so powerful as Professor Moriarty." And yeah, I think Moriarty gets his introduction in this book. He's sort of alluded to in the previous short story collection, but you don't really get much of him. So very excited for Moriarty's entrance here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and read the first portion of this. So the first paragraph is typically what I read. The first paragraph takes up the entire first page in this. It'll be a slightly longer read than usual, but hopefully you enjoy it. The first story in this collection is called Silver Blaze, and this is how it begins. "I'm afraid, Watson, that I shall have to go," said Holmes as we sat down together at a breakfast one morning. "Go? Where to?" "To Dartmoor, to King's Pyland." I was not surprised. Indeed, my only wonder was that he had not already been mixed up in this extraordinary case, which was the topic of conversation through the length and breadth of England. For a whole day, my companion had rambled about the room with his chin upon his chest and his brows knitted, charging and recharging his pipe with the strongest back tobacco, and absolutely deaf to any questions or remarks. Fresh editions of every paper had been sent up by our newsagent, only to be glanced over and tossed down in a corner. Yet, silent as he was, I knew perfectly well what it was over which he was brooding. There was but one problem before the public which could challenge his powers of analysis, and that was the singular disappearance of the favourite for the Wessex Cup, and the tragic murder of its trainer. When, therefore, he would suddenly announce his intention of setting out for the scene of the drama, it was only what I had both expected and hoped for. So that is the first page of the first story, setting up a new adventure for Watson and Holmes to go on. I'm very excited for some fresh Watson and Holmes adventures. It's been a little bit since I've picked one up. So yeah, we're going to venture on. I will check back in when I have finished the first half of this book, as I usually do, and give you a check-in of what I'm thinking so far. The B-roll that you are about to see is a backpacking trip that I went on earlier in the year. I am refilming this intro because it has been so long since I initially started it. So I hope you enjoy that footage of a backpacking trip. And yeah, I'm going to reminisce with you because if you've been around, you know I have been on crutches for 5 weeks now. So the days where I could go backpacking feel like a distant past, and I'm going to be reliving it with you. Let's go backpacking. to give you an update on the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. I'm a little over halfway, okay, maybe I'm like 2/3 of the way. I waited a little bit longer to give you an update, but I am very much enjoying this so far. So I know the previous one I read was The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, also a short story collection, and they are very similar. I think now that I'm most of the way through this one, I'm starting to realize that the collections themselves mirror each other in a certain way. So for example, each collection will have like one story that isn't technically fully solved all the way, one story that takes place with them staying somewhere else, like in the countryside, and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of a formula to the layout of the short story collection itself, which I really don't mind, but I am starting to realize, I think, that the stories that take place in the countryside are my favorite. I think there's an extra layer of atmosphere that I really enjoy, and so far my favorite short story in this collection, let me get the name, is The Musgrave Ritual. And that one does indeed take place with them sort of being on vacation in the countryside with one of Watson's friends, and there happens to be a crime committed while they're there, and Holmes gets sucked in to trying to solve the crime, even though he's supposed to be on bed rest technically. So that one has been my favorite so far, and again, I think I just really love these super atmospheric country ones. It just feels gothic in a way, and I love it. So that's been my favorite one so far. On the blurb in the back, which is very short, it talks about the last story, which is called The Final Problem, and it says that it features a notorious fatal encounter at Rickenbach Falls. So I'm intrigued for it. I'm expecting that one to be good. And this one also says it has Moriarty in here, but to my recollection, I've been reading this a while, but I don't think the short stories that we've read so far have had Moriarty in it. I know he's popped up once very, very briefly in one of the books I've read so far, but it was really, really brief. So I'm interested to see if we get a little bit more of Moriarty in here. And I think that would be really fun if he popped up in the last story. So we shall see if that's actually what happens when we get to the last story, but I am enjoying it so far. I feel like this might be the collection with the least amount of racism. So if that's meaningful to you, which it probably should be, definitely know that. It might be a really good place to start, I think. There's this interesting element to Sherlock Holmes because in some ways he's a very progressive character. Like, he doesn't underestimate women and treats people who are in a lower class of society pretty equally to how he would treat people in a higher class of society. But then there are just these little like twinges of bigotry that come out from time to time. They are pretty brief, and again, I know I've said this before, like not super integral to the story for the most part, but yeah, it's just like a very complicated character, I guess. So yeah, I'm curious to get to the end of this. Again, really excited for the last story. I have 3 more stories left in here, and I will check back in with you once I have finished them. And in the meantime, you're going to get to see my trip to Chicago and Iowa. I know, what a trip. And I went with my in-laws and my partner, of course. And I don't have my in-laws in it because I want to respect their privacy and not film them. But know that they are there with me, and we had a fantastic time. So enjoy that footage and enjoy Big here in the corner. Okay, everyone, I have finished the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, and it was so good at the end. I know I had 3 stories left the last time that I checked in, and they were so good. The very next story that I read actually had the introduction of Mycroft in it, who, if you don't know, is Sherlock Holmes' brother, and really the only family you get to know. So that story was very exciting because he just popped up out of nowhere. I was not expecting it. And it was such a fun story, kind of plot-wise. So the mystery elements and the clues were really intriguing for that one. And part of that is because Mycroft is also supposed to be like a deduction genius. He's just much less motivated than Sherlock Holmes is. So getting to see the back and forth between them and both of them really interested in this enigmatic case was very fascinating, and I really enjoyed that one. And then the final story did pay off. So you did get Moriarty in that story, and really the setup of their epic battle, you get to realize how much Sherlock Holmes has actually been tracking Moriarty over the years and trying to untangle the web of how involved he is in the crime in London and worldwide. So you get to kind of see him telling that to Watson and uncovering this investigative work that he's been doing without saying anything. And then you get to see them clash and meet and battle the wits out. So it was very good. And there is something that happens at the end of the story, which I knew happened. I'm not going to say what it is in case you don't, but if you know what this one involves at the end, I knew what happened. I know what happens next. So I'm very excited to pick up the next one. The next book is a novel in this series, and I'm excited to get back to a novel, but highly, highly recommend this. This might be my favorite so far, I think, of any of them. It's definitely, I think, a little bit over The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes for me, so definitely my favorite short story collection so far, but it might be my favorite so far in total of all the 4 books that I've read from Sherlock Holmes. So really, really enjoyed this thing. Do think that it would be a good place to start if you wanted to just kind of piecemeal it a little bit more and not read them in order, but highly recommend and enjoyed the ending of this. So that is the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, and that is the end of this vlog. So please come join me next time as I pick up the next novel in the series, and I will see you all then. Bye.